Good morning, and thank you for joining me as I share with you on calming the storm within, self care in uncertain times. By a show of hands, how many of us are feeling overwhelmed with life right now? If you did not raise your hand, then you're probably one of the few who has not turned on the news. This year has been challenging. It's an election year, which can bring out plenty of strong emotions. The financial condition on the federal, state, and personal level, the health crisis of COVID 19, an intensive hurricane season, social issues are being brought to the forefront, such as discrimination, poverty, and the overall decline of mental health. Forbes magazine reports that more than one-third of Americans are reporting symptoms of depression and anxiety, yet only half of those are comfortable discussing their mental health. Today, I'd like to address the issue of mental health and self care as individuals, and then discuss how we can identify and help our friends and family with their own self care. So, what is mental health? I'm sure we each have our own definition based on our own thoughts, experiences, and interactions with others. The Center for Disease Control has identified mental health as including our emotional, psychological, and social well being. This includes our thought patterns, our feelings, and our ability to interact and relate with others. Mental health can be impacted both genetically and environmentally. And in times of crisis, such as what we are experiencing in society today, and it can be a recipe for disaster. So where do we start? Looking after our own mental health is always the place to begin. Just like the airlines express, we cannot help others in time of crisis in flight unless we don our oxygen mask first. It is the same concept in our own lives. How can we tell the state of our own mental health? Let's start by looking at the distress signals that our body and mind can give out. These signals can include sleeping. How are we sleeping at night? Do we have a hard time falling asleep? Staying asleep? Are we waking up hours before our alarm is set to go off? Do we feel tired all day or find ourselves nodding off at meetings, at school, or in gatherings? These are all warning signs that we are not getting enough rest or our quality of is lacking. Or possibly, maybe we have the racing thoughts. We're constantly worrying, thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, thinking about what happened today. Could be some anxiety going on in our mind causing us to stay awake. Are we easily irritated? Do the smallest things set off our anger? Do we find circumstances that used to be a slight inconvenience now set our teeth and nerves on edge? Do we find ourselves getting irritated without a specific reason? Do we find ourselves less patient with others, with our loved ones, with our friends? Do we find ourselves feeling sad and hopeless, even though there's really not been a specific event that's caused us to feel this way? Do we find ourselves worrying about the smallest details, not being able to stop about thinking about things that used to not bother us, or not being able to shut our mind off? The feeling of not being able to shut our mind off can be absolutely exhausting. Do we find ourselves panicking at times that used to not bother us? Does the thought of meeting new people strike fear in our hearts and cause us to avoid social events or gatherings? Are we afraid to try new things? Are we afraid to take on that extra project at work or to reach out to someone who may be having a hard time? Do we find it difficult to concentrate, to complete a task that at one point would not have been an issue to finish and not give another thought to? Do we find ourselves easily distracted or having trouble getting motivated? Do we struggle even knowing where to begin at times? Too often, the message is given that signs like these are irrational and we better fix it. It would be easy to shrug these small signs off and demand that we pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and soldier on, but to do so could be detrimental to our own mental health. So, where do we begin if we notice ourselves being this way? The first thing to do is to stop and take a look at what is really going on. By show of hands, how many of us take time to reflect on our own thoughts and feelings about our jobs, our families, our relationships, or even the situation in society today? I can imagine most of you thinking, who has time for that? We must take the time. Just like our cars will not run if we don't put oil and gas in them, we cannot function to the best of our ability if we do not take the time to stop and check in with ourselves. Am I eating regularly? Am I eating the food I need, or am I just reaching for what's convenient? regardless of the type of fuel my body needs. Am I sleeping? Or am I pushing myself to exhaustion because I'm overcommitted or refuse to take a moment to rest? Am I connected to the people in my life who care for me, who want what's best for me? An inner circle of people who love me enough to cheer me on and yet will tell me the truth when I need to hear it? It sounds so simple, yet so many of us do not take the time and effort that we need to take care of ourselves. Self care is the basis of building a life worth living. So, what is self care? Sometimes I hear these words tossed around so casually, yet do we even really know what it means? Merriam Webster has defined self care as taking care of oneself. What does that mean? Well, it can vary from individual to individual. There's no universal rule to self care. Some examples of self care could include eating consistently. I mean, it sounds simple, but taking the time to get proper nutrition can be difficult. Learning what our body needs to function properly is important. Eating healthier can improve our mood and our sleep. Sleeping on a regular basis sounds easy, doesn't it? Just go to sleep. Yeah, not so easy when our minds will not shut off or we feel restless or keyed up. Stopping caffeine earlier in the day, having a set bedtime routine and a scheduled bedtime can make all the difference in the world. If our minds won't shut off thinking about all the things we need to get done, switch it to think about things that make us happy or things that we are grateful for. Using muscle relaxation techniques, meditation, and shutting off electronics can help. Going for a walk. Physical exercise can help us by getting the endorphins going. It's an all natural way to feel better. Playing with a pet, having coffee with a friend, having a relationship and making time for that relationship in which we can vent and release some of our tension or talk about things outside our world. It's very important. We are social creatures and we're meant for relationships. Taking the time to nurture those is a form of self care. Read a book. You want a healthy escape and can't afford a vacation? Dive into another world within the pages of a great storyteller. Make time to watch that one show that lifts our spirit, or one that makes us laugh, or one that doesn't require any mental effort at all to watch. Spending time with our spouse or significant others or families. So, how can we do this if our finances have been impacted by COVID? Well, we could go for a walk, play a hand of Uno, go outside and toss a ball. Do a storytelling game in which each person in the family adds a line to the story and see who can come up with the most creative ending. When we have no resources, we can be surprised with what we can come up with. The imagination we used as a child will be awakening. We've just got to tap into it. Sitting on the front porch and watching the rain. Meditation, yoga, deep breathing, taking a moment to clear the mind can do wonders for being able to focus. Going to the gym or playing a sport. There are numerous adult sports leagues, softball, golf, tennis. Saying no to that extra commitment that we just don't have time for. It's okay to say no. We just need to give ourselves permission to say no. Drawing boundaries in how we allow others to treat us. We train others to treat us on how we allow them to treat us. So, sometimes drawing boundaries is a great form of self care. Being kinder in our own self talk. Do we talk to ourselves with the same gentleness that we talk to others? Our feelings will follow our line of thinking. If we think positive, we'll begin to feel more positive. So if I'm gentler with myself and give myself permission to be human, then that is a form of self care. If it's in the belief system, prayer is a great outlet. Spirituality, if that's in your belief system, that's a great form of self-care. Seeing a doctor. Our physical health can impact our mental health. If we do not feel well, it will greatly impact our attitude and how we feel and see the world around us. So taking that time to go see our doctor and make sure that we're in good health, that's a very important form of self-care. There's no hard and fast rule to self-care. It is just treating ourselves the same way we would like to be treated by others. It sounds so easy, but if it was easy, would we be talking about it? What can we do if we find ourselves feeling overwhelmed even after we implement self-care? A few tips could include an attitude of gratitude. When we look for the positive to balance out the negative, it can help put things in perspective. For instance, I can be upset that I feel overwhelmed at work, or I can be grateful I have a job. It's all about how I choose to look at it. I can live in solution focused thinking. It is extremely easy to fall into negative emotional reactions and live there. The only issue with that is entertaining negative emotions is like quicksand. Once I'm sucked in, it is extremely difficult to get out. To make the conscious choice to look for a solution not only improves my emotional state, but it gives us the strength to move through the crisis rather than to live in the crisis. And it helps us be part of the solution, to be proactive, and to feel like we have some semblance of power and control when we're looking for how to get through it, rather than just looking and feeling overwhelmed and getting stuck in the emotions of it. Take a deep breath and just let it go. What is truly important? Is what am I facing right now life changing, or will this moment pass and become a memory without a life altering effect? Acknowledge my feelings, but do not let them take up residency. Feelings are not right or wrong, they're just feelings. Embracing the feeling for exactly what it is and then releasing it is extremely important. If I hold on to the negative emotion, I'm going to slide into a pit of resentment and despair that will impact my mood and my response to those around me. It is okay to just let it go. It is. Acceptance is the beginning of change. Until I accept what is, I cannot begin to find a solution. Too often we fight reality instead of just accepting it and moving into solution mode and changing our perspective. For instance, a man was sitting on the side of the road. A traveler came to him and he said, I just came from this city and I'm headed to this city over here. Have you ever been there? And the man on the side of the road said, Yes, I have. And the traveler said, Well, what are the people like in that city that I'm going to? The traveler asked, Well, what were the people like in the city you came from? And the traveler said, Well, they were mean and resentful and people were always fighting and nobody ever got along. And the man on the side of the road told the traveler, It will be the same in the city that you're going to. And the traveler went on his way. And a little while later, another traveler came. And the traveler asked the man on the side of the road, So, have you been to the city that I'm going to? The man on the side of the road said, Yes, I have been. The traveler said, Well, what are the people like in that city? And the man on the side of the road asked the traveler, Well, what were the people like in the city that you came from? And the traveler said, "Oh, everybody was great. It was like having a big family. I got along with everyone. Whenever there was a problem, everyone pitched in. We found solutions. It was wonderful." The man on the side of the road said, "Then that's what you will find in the next city. It's all about what we're looking for. It's all about how we see things." We must take the time to take care of ourselves. When we give ourselves permission to be real, to embrace our health, others will look on and follow our example. Too often we get caught up in the facade of this concept of how we think we need to be, how we want others to see us, and we forget the best change is to be real and address things head on. True change starts with us. So, some examples of how I engage in self care: I bowl, I play softball, I go and make sure I have conversations with the people in my inner circle who I can be real with and who can help me adjust my perspective on the situations I'm experiencing so that I'm able to stay in solution focused mode rather than getting stuck in the feelings and feeling overwhelmed. So now that we've discussed, some self-care and some examples of self-care, how can we help our friends and families? How can we spot these issues in those that we love that are around us? How can we tell if they're struggling? Well, if they're disengaged, that's a sign. Our family members seem disinterested in spending time with us? Do they make or break plans often, whereas they used to want to get together? Do you find that you don't hear from them that as often? That could be a sign that they're having a hard time. Are they tired? Do they appear or have said that they are not sleeping at night? Do they just look like they're exhausted? That's a sign. Are they losing weight without having changed their eating habits? That could be another sign. Are they easily irritated, frustrated, or angered? Or maybe they've become more sensitive to our remarks. Could be a sign that they're having a hard time. Have you noticed that they have a deflated sense of self-esteem? Have they made remarks that they just can't seem to do something, or something's never going to change, or maybe they stop putting effort into doing activities that they used to enjoy, these could be signs that they're having a hard time. Have you noticed that they've distanced themselves from others? Or maybe they've had a broader range of emotions than they had before. So maybe, they have a flat tire, and before it might have irritated, and now their anger's off the hook. Or maybe they just get so anxious that they can't even call for help. Might be a sign that they're having a hard time. So how can we help someone that we love, one of our friends or families, when we notice these kinds of signs in them? Well, we can start by checking in with them. Taking a moment when we see someone in distress and giving them a safe space to vent and help them find solutions is imperative. It validates not only who they are, it validates who they are as a person. And everybody needs that safe person that we can talk to, that we can just vent with, someone that's not going to judge us or try to control the situation, but just giving them a moment to feel and vent and get out what they're going through. That's very important. And being present in that moment and really listening, that we all need that at times. Help them stop and smell the roses. Some days we all just need to stop, take a moment, evaluate, and prioritize so that we can move forward. Being proactive, being mindful of our loved ones and what they need. If we can spot the warning signs, then we can move into a solution before a possible crash can happen. Uh, One of the best ways is to set the example. When we model self care, others will notice and take cue. Be appreciative. Maybe a day when it took everything our loved one had just to come over or to pick up that phone, find some way to acknowledge it and to appreciate, the effort that they do put forth. Getting to know their loved one on their level. If we take the time to get to know one, to know them, what makes them tick, what gives them joy, it'll be easier to recognize what, something they need that maybe we can help out with even before they do. It's very, very easy in today's society to rush all over the place, but to really take the time and be present in a moment with somebody, that's a priceless gift that you'll be grateful that you gave. At the end of the day, we can show up and pay attention. Sometimes the solutions are as sincerely as asking um, how someone's doing and really listening to what is being said. And sometimes the solution is seeking outside help. In those times, No Meridian is here for you and your loved ones. You can call 352-374-5600 or 1-800-330-5615 for help anytime. Just know you're not alone. We are here for you, and I hope you were able to learn some positive tips to help you. Thank you for sharing your time with me, and have a wonderful day.